Well, greetings, everybody, and welcome to a rather special edition of the Inworld Review. Now, we haven't actually been doing broadcasting too many editions of this show for some time now, for various reasons, actually. But this one is special in the sense that we're coming to you from our makeshift stage we've rigged up on the OSCC grid, which is the home grid for the conference Open Simulator Community Conference. Well, what else really? And you can find it on the hypergrid at cc.opensimulator.org and then colon 8002. And that will, depending on how you're going or whatever, that will take you to the hypergrid landing spot at the conference. Now, the conference, I'm coming to you now. We are coming to you now, I should say, on the 8th of December. And this will be up all week, of course, on YouTube, so you may be seeing it at any old day. But the conference itself is next Saturday and Sunday. That is the 14th and 15th of December. So you can probably come in any time, but there are various exhibitions and things you can see even outside the conference hours. I gather that tomorrow, Monday, the 19th, the grid will actually be down. In other words, it's sort of a bit of maintenance is being done to prepare it for the conference itself. But generally speaking, you can get in. And you don't have to register for the conference, but if you, depending on whether you log in directly with a local avatar or whether you hypergrid in, your landing place is slightly different. But thereafter, you just find your way around. Anyway, what's it all about? Well, Open Simulator is the engine, as it were, that powers many of the open. Well, we call them open sim worlds, rather obviously. Many of which are all connected together by something called the hypergrid. So you've got these grids that are all like sort of miniature or even microscopic versions of Second Life almost, except they're all connected. So instead of just being able to travel around the grid that you've logged into, you can travel all over the place via the hypergrid. So you're talking about a really massive land area, and although rather scattered, you're talking about a pretty darn big um, population too. It's just not all centralized in one place. And the conference is really a celebration of the year of OpenSim. People showing what they've been doing in OpenSim installations, bring you the latest news about OpenSim and other worlds too, which I'll come to in a while. Now, both sitting next to me, I've got James Outloud, who you know is my partner on the Mess World News, which, if you're live, we just finished. So, hi, James.
Hi, Mel.
Both James and I are actually part of, well, we're both part of the sort of loose organisers group for Open Simulator. James himself is actually nowadays part of Avacon too, and Avacon is the name of the company that is actually the umbrella organizer, as it were, the corporate side of it. We're also joined, however, by an old friend of ours. It's Leo Lobo. Hi, Leo.
Hi, Mel.
Now, you, like me, are on the a part of well, you're a major part of the organising conference. You do all the legwork and multitasking, but you're not actually part of Avacon, are you? You're like me. We're just sort of on the
We're
we're on the
volunteers. That's right.
yeah yeah we're on the OSCC thing, but not actually working for Avacon, the company. Yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
Part of the
So
community.
That's
yes,
right. This
exactly.
yeah, this year
So
I'm co-chair. In the past I've been speaker wrangler, but
I think, aren't you both?
I am both. Yes, yes. Yep.
Yeah, I get automatic copies of all the email correspondence concerning the thing, and but 9 out of 10 of them are actually sent out all addressed to you. It's a confirmation this, confirmation that, and change this, change that. Anyway, so As I say, this is an annual event. Now we were hoping we'd be joined by the sort of a top dog at Avacon, Joyce Bettencourt, but she's a bit poorly, so she can't make it. So we're going to make do without her. Um, but what we tend to do is we tend to just go through the agenda, looking at things, and Leah in particular can sort of enlighten us a bit as to the individual events other than what's just written in the brochure, so to speak. Um, what was I about to say? What was I about to say? Something else. Oh yeah, yeah. I think the best place to start is before we jump to the agenda and actually what's going to be happening. Is I know that this grid is for the first time. It's so the latest version of the OpenSim software is not new as such, but this is the first year that it's been fully integrated into this particular grid, isn't it? So that's a big change from previous years. Do
That's
you
right.
want to tell us more?
We're
Yeah.
using an add-on for WordPress, so it's built into the website now, and so the look and feel of the program may be just a little bit different, but it's going to
Mm.
be relatively familiar. You just click on the titles and you'll see the information.
And right, we'll be doing that live, in fact, I think, as we go along. But as far as Inworld here, the conference is concerned, it's a different version of the Open Similar software, isn't it?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
0.9.1. That's correct. And we're so excited that we were in our load test yesterday, and then of course tomorrow we have a reset of the software and the servers, and then we'll be all squeaky clean and fresh for the conference.
Right. You won't believe me. I logged into the load test yesterday, and I landed in the staff room, which is a bit way out of out of the centre, so to speak. And I dozed off before the actual load test, so I was in there. But I don't know whether being in the staff room counted. I wasn't in the low test regions.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
I was there in spirit, but
The load test.
I did make it in the end, but by then everybody was dancing to music.
Yeah.
So.
It went really well, and there was just nothing we could do to slow down that server. So very, very
That's
Oh,
good.
wonderful!
encouraging.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
I do remember the old days when I guess Adam was involved, but in particular, I can't
You
remember.
mean Justin?
Justin,
Justin, yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And Neb, of course, at the time, and there was load test after load test, 2 or 3 times a week, and all these bots being brought in, and it was like a real effort to stress test it all for expected
See,
number of
that's more
people.
what you do in a production or in a business, where you do a
Yeah,
lot of load testing, and of course he tested it with hundreds of bots.
yeah, I remember.
Hmm.
Yeah, we're okay for 1,000, but mind you, they are bots, so they're not quite as heavy as the real thing. Yeah, no, it's fascinating, behind the scenes, sort of seeing in real time how performance can slow down and get, as we call it, laggy. As more and more avatars pour in, bots or no bots, so you get a real impression of just how easy it is for things to go wrong after you're over a certain limit. But these days, it's pretty good. Most normal events on one region alone can handle 40 or 50 people fairly easily. Whereas at the time, even in Second Life, when you were lucky to get away with about 20. So, okay, well, let's move to the agenda. I need to switch my monitor on. I don't know what it's like on the screen lead, but I have a page open here which is conference.opensimulator.org slash 2019 slash event directory. I'm not entirely sure it's already fully accurate and live at the moment. I'm using it as reference as we go along, so you can see sort of a little bit on screen of what we're talking about. And I'm going to start, if it's okay with you, Leah, with the first entry on this kind of agenda. Um, where are we? It's down here as the 10th and 11th of December, which I guess is Tuesday, Wednesday this week. The time I know here is wrong. It's actually 2 a.m. to 3 p.m.
That's
Pacific
correct.
time, isn't it? Yeah. And maybe you'd like to tell us about. While I've got it open on screen here, and I'm clicking on the entry, as it were, which means it now opens up another window with the details. And I know Cheops, of course, or Cheops, depending on how you write behind this. But maybe I didn't know so much about this particular event because obviously it's before the Tuesday, Wednesday this week is a bit more before the thing
It's an art
proper. So maybe,
experience,
yeah,
and it is bilingual. So you'll notice that the description's also in French and,
yeah,
of course, in English. And visitors are going to have 7 art experiences when they arrive. There's usually 2 things you do when you confront the art. One, obviously, you're going to look at it, but there is one colored set of arrows where you step into the art and you become part of the experience. And it may take
right,
control of your avatar in the sense of attaching it and moving you through some of the experience while poetry is in motion, and while the art, and of course, um, for anyone who's sensitive to movement or to darkened themes or whatever, you just want to be kind of ready for that. But it's very moving. And then the second part is, of course, navigating between the 7 installations.
right. Okay,
And that's an
sorted.
all-day experience, by the way.
Yeah. And is it in 2 parts on the 2 days, or is it simply an all-day experience that's
Well,
repeated
it's an
on
all-day
the?
experience, and of course, it'll probably be open all week. But that's the day when the artists, and of course, a very famous actress, and of course, the hosts will be there, and they'll help visitors with the experience. So, and of course, it is 2 a.m. Pacific time, and I know that's hard for some of our, West Coast folks, but that's great for the Euro visitors. And of course, I'll drop by, and then because I tend to go around the clock, right? But
Yes, I know, yeah,
yeah,
and I'm
and
Euro
then
too, so that's good.
right. So it's a
I know.
13-hour experience, and you can drop in anytime. Go ahead now.
Yeah, I suspect it's the kind of thing that as an experience, it won't really matter what times you zone you're in when you pop in.
That's
It's
right.
just the extra of meeting the people concerned. I know Keops, of course, from the International Expo, which we did a couple of years back, which was run on European time. Whereas I'm personally unfamiliar with Dennis Moran or I like the painter's name, Lico Catnap.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it said catnip at first, but never mind. Yeah, but yeah, no, I'd love to see that. Well, I remember many, many years ago, and I think it was in Second Life, we did this very program in World Review. We had an artist guesting, and uh, you couldn't even see our logo because they filled the back of the stage with paintings like a gallery.
Mm-hmm.
But when you looked at these looked like paintings in frames, some bigger and some smaller. But what you didn't see were invisible poses and things. So you were actually able to step into the, you could click on the painting and
Mm-hmm.
suddenly you'd be sitting on, like a half moon or something that's part of the painting. And your avatar will become a figure in the painting. And then, of
That's
course,
right.
you stand up and moved on to something else. That was great
But
fun.
in this case, it also moves. So the thing you're attached to will move
Yeah.
you into the experience, and that's of course very very moving. And we want to thank Jacqueline and Jean-Claude Barral for doing the voice interpretation. So you're going to hear an audio track as well. So make sure you have your sounds turned on.
Whoa, great. And we'll be. It sounds like we're so after that. I remember to make the actual conference, but we'll have 2 days rest, I suppose. Okay. Well, that actually sounds great. I mean, it's really nice. We've got. The other thing before we go into the full agenda, is that this year in the conference proper, not just the expo regions or whatever, there's a lot of artwork contributions that have come in that are sort of scattered around in various places, aren't there?
That's right. That's right. And Franz Charming has been coordinating that. You're going to see all kinds of artwork. And of course, much of it is donated and you can get a copy of it. So that's one of the wonderful sharing elements in our community is that these artists have graciously shared their work, and of course, are trying to promote 3D immersive art in virtual worlds.
All right. Now, we're coming from this sort of outside broadcast sort of makeshift stage at the moment, which is in an area called Expo Zone 3. There are four other expo zones as well as landing zones, and then there are the main four quadrant zones where the conference happens. But if I'm going to put James on the spot here if I can, because if he pans out from here in camera and moves his camera
Already
around.
doing it, Mal.
You are very good. Well, I can't see what's going out live, but behind us, just over the way here, there's a whole load of actual booths with signs on them, which correspond to the panels and speeches that are going on. So, let's say you've just come to the conference and you've seen a panel with the core developers. Um, you might not want to watch the thing that's on next. You might, of course, but you'll be able to come over here, and you'll find the core developers, or some of them at least, probably hanging out here to answer questions that you might have had that while the panel was on, because obviously the panels, as you know, Liz, they happen so quick. You got about 5 minutes to turn over to the next panel or speech, and sometimes they overrun, so it's not really any good time for question and answers. So, I mean, a lot of presenters do rely on these booths, don't they? So they can come here and answer questions
That
afterwards.
that's right, Mal. You know what? They're going to stay up for the entire year. So we encourage our speakers to put content in there, maybe multimedia, maybe social media icons that help you to get connected with them, so that you can go visit after the conference at their home locations. And then some of them have also gift items and part of their experience. I know that Art Blue and some of the others put part of their content in the booth so that people can participate. So you'll want to check out the Expo Zone 3 region booths, the speaker booths, and they're on one quarter of the sim.
Right. And yes, what the other quarters is where
They look
James
like
has.
cupcakes, the
They
gazebos.
do.
Yeah, right.
They do. Yeah. Those aren't booths, they're cupcakes, and I'm
I know.
hungry.
Right, right, right.
I shall put on my Gulliver's Travels avatar and eat them. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, where we are is the same region. We're on James's sort of patch in the other quarter, and there's various exhibits in the other, but there are also other expo zones too. So they often have. I'm not quite sure what's where, but I mean, in one place there's booths with sponsors. In other words, basically between all the expo zones, you've got what about 16 different quadrants to explore and visit things. Yep. Okay. Uh, uh, oh yes, you're still on. Sorry, I thought you. Right. Um, Also, this year for the first year, there is, I guess, on one quadrant or other. I'm not quite sure where it is. I haven't been there yet. There is actually a music stage, an actual dedicated music stage this year,
That's
isn't there,
right. There's a
for
region for it.
events?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, we'll come to that as we go through the agenda, but I think both evenings there are, after the main conference, the various entertainments that would no doubt be on that stage. Okay, well, moving forward, after the midweek thing, we're on the 14th of December, which of course is Saturday. And the very first panel, traditionally, really, at 7 a.m., and all our times, by the way, are Pacific USA times, which is tends to be the time zone all these actually almost all virtual worlds seem to use for some reason. Um, Open Simulator 0.91 features and updates. Now, this really is the core developers panel. The reason it's got that number on it is that that number represents the latest release of the actual OpenSim software, and the developers, of course, are the key people that are actually working on it. Open Simulator has a lot of developers working on it, and there are a lot of other strands that, away from the main core developers. But this one is the main people, and I'm opening the little window here on the screen. Um, Basically, yeah, this is a panel of just talking to the core developers. I'm going to actually move down here a little bit so we can see the people on it. Firstly, we have Krista Lopez, who is the inventor of the hypergrid, actually, amongst other things. But she's one of the core developers. We've got you, Leah, and you're not a core developer at all.
Oh,
You are the host of the panel, I guess, as indeed is Joyce Betancourt. Kevin Cosens. Do I know him under? I don't think I know him.
Yeah,
Uh,
he hosts the developers meeting on
ah,
Tuesdays. Why can't I remember his name? That's his real life name.
Oh, right. Okay.
Brain.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Also, Melanie Milland. I know Melanie, and Robert Adams, who's known as Mr. Blue. Mr. Blue Waves. Oh, never mind. I thought it was just Mr. Blue. Never mind. And also one on the other line underneath here, we've got Ubit Umarov, who's probably the most the member of the OpenSim core that we hear most
yeah,
from,
we want to
actually.
put out a special thank you to Ubit for putting out 0.9.1 and also for encouraging us to do our updates and to get in sync. What's funny though is he's been working so hard. He already has another version out and he's already we're looking at defects and new features and so of course it's hard to keep up with him, but we want to thank him for that.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I'm not a developer, and I don't know what they're talking about half the time, but I do follow their channels on both IRC and I think they've got a MeWe channel now, although they're on one of the others too. I get them, I get a little notice when they're updated, and I notice Hubert is one of these people that's always sort of chatting in that channel, with things which I know nothing about, but I still notice
And
him,
you,
if you see what I mean. Right.
right.
I
Well, you
believe
notice
Kevin
Marcus is
Cousins' avatar name is Andrew Hellershanks.
that's right.
Oh,
Andrew
right.
Hellershanks.
Okay, fair enough.
And And normally we would see those avatar names on here, but we're using new software this year and we don't have the program visible to the public yet because we're trying to get it to behave the way we're expecting it to behave so that people
Right.
who want their avatar names displayed instead of their real life names, we're sorting all that out before we release. So that's just something to have a little heads up on for there. But
Right.
and then we want to put a shout out to Marcus Llewellyn who upgraded these servers and has stepped up to bat and helped us to get our technology ready for the conference.
Wonderful. And of course, we know Marcus is a camera person as well.
That's right. So he's always
Yeah.
on the other side of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
An
Well, he's on both
editor
sides of the
and
camera and
right.
in multiple worlds as well. I don't know how many Avatar he runs simultaneously, but he always seems to be online in High Fidelity, for example. Um, when I've got a widget that shows who's online in what world and stuff. He seems to be managed to be online all over the place
Excuse me one
at
second,
the same
Mel.
time.
Could
Yeah.
you get your avatar to look forward?
Oh, I'm very sorry. Yes, I keep. But I'm too busy looking at Leah. You
That's
see.
right.
you know,
Too
and
many
and those
windows.
of
I
that's
should
right.
be looking at the camera, but I'm too busy being hypnotized by Leah Lobo.
Well, you know what's funny, and I do apologize if anyone's noticing I'm fidgeting. I have that wonderful Boaters AO animation override on, and I love it because every so often I check my feed and fidget around. And I rarely sit still, so this is
Yeah.
not uncommon.
In other words, it may look odd, but it's actually quite realistic and symbolic of
That's
what you're
right.
doing. The many things you're actually doing. Yes.
That's right.
Fair enough. Well, so long as you're with us at all points, I don't care
That's
what
it.
else I'm doing. Right. Okay. So obviously, the conference starts on that's a pretty technical note for a start, and obviously things take a while to sort of warm up and stuff. But by tradition, the developers are there at the beginning. Um, Right, the next session, which is at 7:30 a.m. Until 7:50. This is a 20-minute one. Mike Higgins, otherwise known as K Acre Magic. What's good about OpenSim? So, in a sense, this is not a panel, but a talk, I guess, that is
Well,
also
he's going to be
addressing.
with Mike Laurie, and they're
Oh yeah,
they're going to talk about scripting for this version, and some of the behaviors of some of their physics objects, and so it's going to be a fun little session. Yep.
Right. And this will involve talking with well, I think I've been here before. There'll be a slideshow behind this, but there will also be cannon firing, painting in the air with brims, and throwing tomatoes at the audience. Brackets splat. Can one add anything to that? I don't know. We can really, can we? I have seen these demonstrations. I remember no, I think they were firing gun. Well,
Well,
anyway, they've got
in
moving
Mal, in the
brims.
past, we used to schedule kayaker later in the day just in case things didn't go so well, right? Because
Yeah, yeah.
all the yeah, but well, we don't want our Euro members of the community to have to stay up so late, so we scheduled it right after the core developer session.
Sure, and it's also related in it's talking about the software rather
Absolutely.
than talking about the software and whatever. Yeah, and yeah, well, I guess that's good. And just Sophia, what's after it? OR Blue. I love this. So if anything does go wrong with all those scripts, it's going to have to be Art who goes. And Art is no stranger to running strange scripts and stuff himself. So, Extinction Global: How Open Simulator Can Save the World in a Fridge. Oh, right. We're now up to 8 a.m. This is definitely both Art and Julius are Europeans. So um, this talk shall be recently the art of brain was transferred to Mars. What? Even on the moon and Mars, moon and Mars are on the wrong routers. Why you don't get this? Anyway, they're biennial thingers. They've been doing too. But yeah, Art and Juliet are. I've had them on the show in the past. They're
Hmm.
pretty big on scripting and stuff. Although, yeah, Art is quite into the
And it'll be
education
quite
side
an
of it.
experience. Plus, they'll
Yeah.
have a booth that'll support what they're doing. They're working on the booth design as we speak. Yeah. Hmm.
The talk is focusing on the Fate VR. I know what that was because I went to that.
Hmm.
Right.
They'll also have
So,
videos once again.
right. That's how long have they got? 8 till
Well, they
8
have
20 minutes.
it's a spotlight session. Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm just thinking of the mechanics of running videos and
Well,
showing
they'll share
everything
those
else
with
they do.
the audience, and they're just a few minutes. And then, of course,
Right.
they'll have additional videos for after the session. So you'll want to check out their booth for more content.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that should be fascinating. So anyway, we've got a very artistic start here, really, given what we had in midweek as well. Um, yeah, there is well, there's our blue. We haven't got a photo of Julia, have we? Right, okay. I'm getting used
Well,
to this
you've brought up
this
an
new.
important point, Mal.
Yeah,
There's 16 sessions on Saturday, and there's 14 sessions on Sunday, and that's not including the after hours music programs. So we
yeah.
have or the breaks. So so we to fit all 30 sessions into a 2-day format, we have a lot of 20-minute sessions. That's right.
Oh, sure, yeah. Panels are normally 50, sorry, and 20-minute sessions. That gives 10 minutes for turnover, and invariably half of them will go over time. But one allows for that. You just tell them no questions. You're over time. Get them off in time for the next session. It is. It's always been a lot to fit in. But as you say, that goes for the booths where they can expand a little bit. Now, coming at 8:30 a.m. God, the day's going slowly here, isn't it? The trouble about 20-minute sessions is I've got a lot of them to click on here. Right, Open Simulator goes via Google Cardboard. Um, right. Well, Google Cardboard has officially been discontinued now, of course. Although I always thought of it as Google Plastic. It didn't stay cardboard for long. Um, What's this about? It's tool presented by Austin Tate. Yeah.
N-
Um, yeah, but that's not the person giving the talk, is it? Who's
No, no.
hmm.
Uh, y- I think it's a
Oh,
relative of Art Blues. And of
yeah.
course, he has this wonderful way of pulling OpenSim content and looking at it. So think of the Google Cardboard just as a way of viewing the virtual world.
Yeah, I'm reading there now. Actually, that's making more sense. Yeah, we've covered this before. In fact, I think on one of my
Hmm.
speaker panels of years gone by, we covered this because you can actually take content from OpenSim and then import it into Unity, which is one of the major virtual world authoring
See, and we do
platforms,
that too.
and then you can
Right.
export it from there into other places. So often OpenSim can be viewed as a creativity tool where you start originating something built or created and then
That's
take it
that's
on.
right.
Mm.
That's right. We do that for our game designs and our game simulations. So we build them totally in World, and then we port them to Unity so that we can have them on handheld devices for
Yeah.
iOS or Android. That's right.
Yeah. So there's more to OpenSim than just OpenSim. You know,
That's right.
who knew you're in Sciencebase, but that was built in OpenSim, or you're in High Fidelity, that was built in OpenSim, or you're in VR Chat, and you didn't know that was built in OpenSim, because
Well, see,
all
a
these
lot of
platforms allow for importing. So we're more connected than we possibly realise.
that's right. It is a collaboration tool because we can all be in World collaborating on a design together and look at the effects of change in real time. That's very hard to do in Unity or other tools.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the major things with social worlds too. Unity is an authoring environment. It's like Blender and things. It's an offline tool. And although Sciencebase in particular has this sort of mini set of Unity tools that you can use live in the world, it's only a micro set of the kind of stuff you have in Unity. But you can't really, when things get that powerful, you can't have the authoring environment be the inhabited environment. It's just, you know, um, OpenSim, Second Life, and some of them, stretch it to the limit, really. And people always were talking about modernizing Second Life with a new game engine and everything else. And quite frankly, then they said, well, we couldn't. It wouldn't be Second Life because if we incorporated all that stuff you're talking about, we'd have to give up something else. At the moment, there's a nice balance between something inhabitable and something that is a platform creating at the same time. To enhance either one of those to any great extent, and you have to sacrifice the other half of the coin, so to speak.
That's right.
Yeah, but the collaboration thing is major. I mean, one thing that I think I've been mentioning on Saturday's panel is the way, oddly enough, I was talking with Philip Rosedale, in of all places, Second Life. He popped back for a while, and he had a small group of people were meeting in Dublin, and it was this occasional thing of asking people what they wanted from a world and stuff like that. A lot of people were focused on the social thing, and then I pointed out that it's not just the social world; it's actually the collaborative aspect of the workspace or of the space. So that can be a social space, but it could be a workplace and stuff too. And I notice now that, for example, High Fidelity have pulled right back from the social worlds and, well, per se, and they're concentrating on the enterprise and actually providing the collaborative workspace. Their focus is on collaboration, mostly in the workplace. So what you said there about collaboration is a really major sort of part of it. The fact that you can just go in there and be with other people, and not only just be with them and talk to them, but do things with them. Um, you know, fully interactive. Anyway, I'm talking more than Caesar should be talking. Right.
Well, that's all right. And we've been doing that since 2008 in our little research group. And I know many
Yeah,
of many groups within the community have meet and work and collaborate. And there have been so many new grids and so much growth that it's hard to keep up with it all. That's why this conference is so important.
sure. Yeah. so we don't blow it by 10 them all beforehand. Okay, I'm going to move to 9:30 in the morning. Gosh, it's still early yet. Eureka
Eureka.
World, an ecosystem for learning. I think we're going to hurry this up a bit because I've realised we really are spending a lot of time on each one.
Well,
But
we're going to have
yeah,
34 things to talk about. So,
well,
yes.
this is an interconnecting system with educational resources such as teachers, students, mentors,
Mhm.
development to work together. Well, we're back to collaboration. Do you know what Eureka World is? Is it a different
I haven't been
platform?
there,
Or?
so this is new to me, but I'm looking forward to it. So you have to
Right.
realize what happens for those of you out in the audience. We have speakers who present proposals, and we try to give a voice to everyone who submits a proposal. So if you're ever wondering how do we schedule, we try to find space and time for everyone. When we have too many proposals, we try to combine some of them into an hour format so that we can think about a theme. But in this case, we were able to support all of our proposals this year. And we thank the people who have joined us who are quieter members of our community that we're just not aware of their contributions. So I'm looking forward to this one and all of them.
It's yeah. No, it's I was telling somebody else the other day about this. You know, it's always nice when something new comes along.
Hmm.
You know, we need the new stuff. And you know, if I had one criticism of this particular conference myself, you know, I'm not saying this is major criticism, but having been involved with it, you know, you do tend to, you know, maybe 50% of the time we're coming across the same people year in, year out. And in a few rare instances, it's almost the same talk, you know. And I keep thinking, you know, you know, we want, you know, it's really well. Let's just say it's really invigorating when the new stuff starts coming in, you know,
Plus, that's
because
a
you
good point. We have a lot of silent members of the community. And the other aspect of this is when we all gather together, whether you're in the audience or on stage, and we're talking through the local chat and we're networking and sharing ideas, going to social events. That's really what the conference is about. It's not just about the speaker sessions,
mm,
it's about all of us getting together and seeing old friends, meeting new ones, and of course, sharing your contributions.
the virtual water cooler to the power of n or whatever it is.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I vaguely think I've heard of Eureka World, and maybe it may be a very education specific thing that I looked at in passing at some point, but I have a feeling it might not be. It might be a separate kind of world system. But I'm glad you mentioned that because I know that this year, um, for example, well, I will come to it in a bit. You know, the viewer panel I normally do does not exist this year. It's morphed, if you see what I mean. But I'll come to that when we get to it. Following this, we got Graham Mills. Now, he, as an example, is somebody who's year in, year out, he's there, and usually with some form of railway.
And once again,
This time he's going underground with the Wapping Tunnel. Now, actually, I probably find this even more kind of amusing because he's in Britain and I'm in Britain, and you know I know the Wapping Tunnel and the things he refers to, whereas I'm sure people around the world have probably never heard of Wapping, let alone the Wapping Tunnel. But they're kind of household region names in Britain. Wapping it sounds like it should have an O for Wapping, great place, but it's out in the east of London, and it's still on the end of a tube line, so I presume the Wapping Tunnel is the bit that's oh, I'm looking at it. Yeah, I don't know whether he's talking about the main line station or whether he's talking about the tunnel, the underground station.
I think
But
he's talking about the tunnel, and he's working on that in OpenSim, the model and
yeah.
construction of it. And then, of course, he
Oh,
always connects it between history and culture. So we get a sense of why these spaces matter to us and how they've helped transform our society
and
or shape it.
yeah, I actually owe our listeners an apology. I've just noticed that this particular Wapping tunnel connects Liverpool and Manchester, which is up
Hmm.
north. It's nowhere near London. Uh, the
I
the
was
Wapping,
wondering, but
the
I haven't
Wapping,
been there.
yeah, well, no, the Wapping area of London is well known too. But it's
Hmm.
different. And I don't know the origin of the name Wapping anyway. So. Okay, let's move on. Right, Interstellar at Virtual Harmony. Well, you know about this one, I think.
I do, but the title just changed, and that's what I mean about the
Ah,
program is not quite fixed because we're calling it Pilgrims, which is Professional Identity and Leadership Growth in Metaverse Simulations. All that means is we're going to take a bunch of our we have architected into 6 or 7 grids with collections of regions within each grid,
yeah,
and the reason we've done that is to optimize performance. And we of course are hosting all of this from a farmhouse in Alabama. so so we're self-hosting, and then we have a lot of different simulations. We're going to be showing, I think, examples from our comic book. We're starting to build stories to go
Oh,
with our
well,
games. That's right.
you had a
And
comic
then
book.
yeah, we are. We're creating some comics to give some stories behind the games, and you have to realize I've been very focused on the Mars work, and we have a
Yeah.
whole new development for that, Mal. In fact, we have a different port number and the whole 9 yards, for our latest work. And we've gone into a lot of realism. We're working with NASA and others to get all these schematics so that our simulations have more fidelity, from a training perspective. And then we're also thinking about education and perhaps a future opportunity with Space Camp or some of the other groups. Uh, and then, but we have others like remember the survival sim that we talked about a couple years ago, maybe 3 years. Well, now we've migrated it into a Shackelford exhibit and an experience, and so we're thinking about how do leaders emerge when they're under crisis or when there's survival situations. How do we stimulate that? And so we're formalizing the story. We have a little bit of machine learning and artificial intelligence behind it that we're working on. And then we're also looking at some proof of concept for how does the system um, observe your behavior, support you when you have questions, and then, of course, learn from your experience so that it can support you better in the future. So we have all these moving parts to the simulation, and we're going to talk about the story. And we only have 20 minutes, so
Well, yes, I was just thinking, I could probably interview you on the comic books for 20 minutes.
mhm, mhm.
I used to work in comics many when I was
Oh,
younger, much
wonderful.
much younger, in the 70s, early 80s. But I've been thinking, I'm just too tired these days. But I was thinking of, taking snapshots in world and things, and then trying to green screen various avatars and sort of you know, create
And I have to apologize to
a comic
everyone.
book. Yeah.
I put down for event details, cool stuff coming because
Yes. Well,
it's a
why not?
collaborative work, right?
Yeah.
And I had to make sure that all my team members were in agreement on what we were going to talk about, and of
Fair
course,
enough.
we tend to be very dynamic, and we've been working on this since 2008, so it's really maturing nicely. But we figure we have another 10 years of work. So anyway,
I scrolled down to speakers there. So Spinoza is Andrew Stricker,
mhm.
Barbara Truman is Delightful Duwangle, and of
Who's also
course,
a member of the organizing committee. She's handling the
yes, indeed she
moderator
is.
scripts.
Yes,
That's right.
she is indeed, and of course you, who is also known as Cynthia Cologne. Or
Yeah, Joyce
I always
said she
say
put in my new photo.
Cologne.
Yeah,
Oh, is
that's
that
a
a new
photo
one?
from when we were speaking at MIT, and she noticed that it wasn't
Oh,
centered. Yeah, well, I look like a geek smiling, right?
oh,
I normally just work with an avatar photo because then.
you. But I'm sure the photo I'm used to seeing of you is one wearing a
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
floppy hat.
Oh, I have that too. I wear a
That
hat all the
the real
time.
world you with a floppy hat.
That's right.
Yes,
I've
that's
given 279 keynote addresses and presentations, and most of them I'm wearing a fedora. That's right.
that's it. Fair enough. Right. Well, somebody else is technical on the organising committee, although I haven't seen her on it this year. But she's really a mainstay here at State of the Union, State of the whatever.
It is the
State
State of the Union. You're
State
right.
of the Union. Yeah, it is. State of the Open
We were
World. Yeah.
trying to update our titles this year, so we're calling it the Open Simulator Community. But you're right. She has
It's
surveyed the community. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, basically, Maria, for those who don't know, she's got a new photo as well this year.
She
Uh,
does. And she has 2 books out, and
uh,
if you have not
uh,
gotten a copy of her books, she had them for free on Amazon, so you wanna check that
yes.
out under her name, and they're science fiction, they're wonderful. So
I haven't got around to reading it. I think I've managed to get one, but not the other on the freebie thing. But yeah, I need to find time
and of course, those
to
are
read.
time limited, so,
Yeah.
if you notice that it's now has a fee, yeah, obviously, authors put a lot of work into writing a book. It can take 1 to 3 years to write a
Oh
book,
yeah.
so
Some some people can actually do it really quickly. They just
some can.
intuitively they may spend a year thinking about an idea, but when the idea comes, it's down and out. Whereas others really it's really a long job.
See, I run a lot of writing workshops nowadays, Mal, and
Yeah.
I've worked with in writing for NaNoWriMo a collection of books, and I have a little thing, a book that says "book in a month," where you can write a book within a month. The difficulty is you obviously have to edit and and make it a coherent story. But yes,
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoy that. I enjoy that, especially when I'm prompted. Um,
that's right.
to I don't, what was it? Somewhere in world. It may have been Second Life. I don't know. There was a group of us for a short while who did one of those writing things where
Oh yeah.
one person wrote a story, a sort of paragraph, but then it had to
hmm
be taken over by the other person who had no
That's
idea
called a
what you were.
tandem story.
Yeah,
If you have a two-person one, if you have a collaborative one, there's other
yeah,
ways to phrase it. Those are so much fun, and they're fun to
yeah,
do for an event too, where you're all sitting around a pub and
yeah.
someone gives the first line, the next person gives the next line.
Yeah, exactly. No, I remember we did it we did it in a circle. It was
That's
like
right. That's
it was
right.
like a drum circle, and we went round the circle. Sort of. Yeah, it's a good fun activity in virtual worlds, to be
It
honest. Although
is.
technically you could probably do it on Skype or anywhere, but somehow being in an environment like that makes it more compelling. Right. Okay. So anyway, yeah,
Meal break.
Maria, of course, is the publisher come editor as Hypergrid Business, which is followed by an awful lot of people. She actually covers a lot more than OpenSim these days, although she has returned. One of her relatives also writes for the Hypergrid Business now and
hmm
actually covers a lot more of OpenSim again. But Maria's very fond of stats. Some of you may remember her, but she was a co-host with me on this show and the news for a long while. Um, so any excuse to put up a chart and talk about what's what and growth figures and all that sort of stuff, she jumps at it. So her talk is usually pretty authoritative, sort of verbalization of facts and figures, about things that have progressed, others that haven't, things that have grown, things that have shrunk, trends in the general
hmm
sense. Okay, well, there's then a meal break. Now, I don't know whether there's virtual food here, but I've never found it
Well,
it
during the
never
meal
really
break,
satisfies me too much. So,
well, we have a few minutes, and then the folks who have registered for the conference and have donated, become one of the VIPs, are invited to a little meeting with the core developers. It's a Q&A on the staff zone.
yeah.
And yep, with limited access. And we want to thank everyone for joining us. So you don't, if you're a VIP or not, we love all of our attendees. But for VIP guests, you can go to ask questions of the core development team in an informal chat.
Right. Okay, and immediately after that, at 12:30, talking of VIPs, this is described. This is where I get to talk. This is described as Cool Tech and Hot Topics panel. In fact, it's called.
That's right.
Interestingly, oh look, there I am. Right, not much here on that side of it. It's really the future of social worlds. Is more or less the given title this way, and I'm not joking about me being a VRB or anything. In case you wondered, I have somebody on that panel. It's not listed here yet, but who I consider my VIP, and that is Blair McIntyre is his name. Prof. Blair is known as avatar-wise in various worlds. He is from Mozilla Hubs. And Mozilla, in fact. Now, Mozilla, of course, are the people behind Firefox, not Firestorm, but Firefox, the web browser. And they are very passionate about open source things, amongst other things. And they have had for some time now, I guess it's Web VR, a sort of successor to VRML, if anybody remembers virtual reality modeling language. It's basically a way of bringing virtual worlds onto the web. So rather than downloading a client, you actually, you go on the web. Now, a lot of it looks fairly elementary at the moment, but on the other hand, it is just so easy. Anybody on any web browser can simply go to Mozilla Hubs and create a room and be in it. You don't even need to register an avatar name and all that sort of stuff. It's just two clicks and you're in there. What you do over and beyond that is another thing, but it's like the hypergrid. This opens up sort of opportunities. If you imagine that everybody who used a web browser had a world in that web browser, and that all those pages with web browsers on that were somehow linked, a bit like a hypergrid, then there's a lot of we don't know. The thing is, we don't know what the future holds. And traditionally, this panel has been my viewer panel, as it were. And quite frankly, after enough years, I mean, there's no new viewers to talk about this year. There's not any significant differences to any of the viewers we've already got.
Well,
And
that's
it's,
not true. There, we do have a viewer, an
oh, you've got,
adaptation, shall we say,
yeah,
on Sunday.
you've got Scene View. Have you tried using that? It's a
Scene
mess.
Gate? Yes.
Scene Gate, yeah, it's appalling. Sorry, I better not comment. But yeah, I don't call that a new viewer. I call that a
It is an adaptation, you're right,
it's
of
a
the
bit.
alchemy.
It's the same idea that Krista herself had with OnLook, which is to
Right.
extract crucial things that you might need for a quick business meeting or something, based on existing code. And um, but it's I can't explain it without going into it in detail. I took one go at it and hated it. It didn't address anything that it removed too much, and what it added in, it didn't address. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Well, we can say that is new, because it's certainly featured at the conference anyway. But basically, from the point of view of a viewer panel, there was no follow up, for example, to a new interface based on the stuff that was released last year by Melanie released all that
Hmm.
Unity, wasn't it? Interface code last year, and so people were doing stuff with it. I know some people started converting it into another format and stuff, but there's no, I haven't really heard anything more about that. But there have been some other interesting things coming up, and I've actually put those through to. I'll mention them in a while, but I put those through to a panel on Sunday. So we don't have a hypergrid panel on Sunday, but we may be talking about something, that could end up one day being similar to a hypergrid. And of course, having Blair from Mozilla is like, I consider a sort of star performer. I was almost tempted to hand it over to him and say, "Will you keynote instead?" But
Wonderful.
I know professionally I will be joined by Adam Frisbee from ScienceBase, and obviously a founder of OpenSim, of course, Adam, um,
Hmm.
to engage in that conversation. And possibly one or two others, just depending on what transpires in the week. Because when you're talking about the future of social worlds, there are actually quite a number of players out there who are not necessarily the obvious ones you think of. But I was particularly keen on this because Mozilla Hubs, I know it's a step to the web and everything else, but because Mozilla is so passionate about open source, I feel that is the commonality with OpenSim. That's what makes OpenSim so different from Second Life, which is proprietary. And so, if things are going to be on the web, I'd rather they were Mozilla Hubs than Facebook Spaces. If you see what
Hmm.
I mean. So that is what will be happening on that panel, is a future of social worlds. So moving on to other persons, at 1:30, grassroots virtual world entrepreneur lessons learned with Ramesh Ramol. I don't know. Is it Ramesh Sharma? I think,
Ramlo.
but we all call him
Mhm.
Ramesh. So yeah, um, yeah.
And he actually has a longer title for that, but this year's program creates a link with the same title, so we had to truncate it. The actual title is So You Want to Become a Bootstrapped Grassroots Virtual World Entrepreneur. Well, here's what I've learned.
Oh, dear. Don't you love long titles? What do his ills look like?
Well, it's
It's like,
wonderful that he's sharing his insights from starting his business and from the design of his product and then how people are using it. And so we're going to get some insider look in how that's going. Now, I
sure.
have to mention on Saturday, he has another session on Saturday that's more technical. And then after his session, one of the users is presenting how she's using his tool, Resmela.
Right. It's a bit vague here. Is this a tool in OpenSim or is this just another virtual world?
If content creation. So we'll have to
So
look
it's
at that.
it's OpenSim tools basically. Yeah, that's good.
Mhm.
So yeah, great. And this is Saturday, of course. So you mean Sunday is on as well?
Yeah, on Sunday,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
continue the story looking at the technical aspects. And then, of course, an example of one of the users, who's created content with it.
Right. Great. Well, we'll get to that in a minute, I guess. Following up 2 o'clock, 50-minute session, virtuality versus virtual world. So I don't.
It's a smackdown.
SmackDown, yeah. You see, I don't. It's very odd. I don't see a versus in here. Virtual worlds are, and they can be in virtuality as well as on screen.
Mhm.
But it's the way people are using this expression virtual reality now to suggest that it's got to be hardware. It's got to be 3D
Yeah,
headsets or
see,
something.
a
Whereas to
lot of
me,
people
it's
are
not
trying
a.
to claim that's right. They're trying to claim VR as requiring a head mounted display device or other peripheral. And
Mm,
of course, what we're doing is we're saying, and this is being run by a collection of librarians who are crossing over the different technologies. They're
sure,
looking at the research as well as the history and then the current development of these technologies and whether or not we're going to let them redefine what virtual reality means just based on hardware.
sure, right. Yeah, I've. Well, something I'm always saying on this program and elsewhere is, it's the platform that's important. I mean, the best platform would be accessible on a screen or in VR or indeed on a mobile phone in one way or another, maybe reduced or enhanced versions. But platform is key. It's not the hardware that should be important. It's the
Plus,
hardware is different methods of accessing
that's
something.
right. The head mount display device just gives you the sense of this first person perspective and it
Yeah,
presents the world to you, but it's not the world itself. And
yeah,
I guess you probably know that in 1995, my doctoral research was in studying head-mounted display devices and how to get them on personal computers. Back with the
In
166 megahertz.
1995, did you
Yeah,
just say?
1995 is when I
Oh,
started with the
God.
Superscape VRT 4.1 out of the
Oh.
UK, Mal. So
Yeah.
I had to migrate from the Mac to the Windows system, and I had to wait for the 166 megahertz processor to come out before I could get all of my technology on. And I had to have device drivers written, and yep. So I was part of that early effort to study how do we get these worlds on a PC and available for users to develop their own content. And so
Mm.
I was thinking about the interfaces and the experience, the user experience.
That's 25 years ago.
I know it's
Well,
crazy, right? You're going, oh my gosh, you're old.
24 if we're nitpicking.
Uh-huh. Well, no,
So
it's
some
been a
of our
while.
listeners probably not even born then.
Oh, well, see, I teach all these classes at various schools, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I've been computing for 44 years. Oh my gosh. I started on punch cards in 75. So it's been a long progression now.
Obviously looking back at that time, I presume that was a
Uh-huh.
limited sort of time before you moved on to other things, although
Oh,
you continued your passion for virtual worlds, of course. But
mhm.
do you go, especially going back that far and realizing the potential? Um, do you feel, and I'm simply I'm phrasing this in the idea, there's just a long period there for you to consider. Do you feel like as we know, gamers have taken up Oculuses and things, but the main take up of VR headsets is in the enterprise, is in industry, it's not with consumers. And I just wonder if do you think that that fully immersive technology is has borne real fruit or will do. I mean, I know it will be used heavily in the future, but maybe we thought it was going to be ubiquitous in the future at
Mm-hmm.
one point, and I now begin to think it probably won't be, because it's by being total immersion, it actually precludes your contact with anything outside the immersion. So, it's as much as it's social in the virtual world, it's antisocial in the real world. If you see what I mean,
The
it's gone from
cultural
one
aspects
extreme,
they're still
one
studying. That's right.
yeah, one extreme to the other, and I'm beginning to have second thoughts about, a lot of this stuff.
I like blended reality, Mal, and that's kind of
Yeah,
what you're doing by showing your screen and by talking. For us, we're sitting in a world, and so we're in so many different spaces coming together across a variety of technologies, and
yeah,
that's really what I'm an advocate of is the user experience, and
yeah,
the user experience needs to have awareness of the world around them as well as the virtual world as well as others within the
sure,
world. And see
yeah,
in VR, some of the VR applications that people are looking at to me are really 3D video, and others are they're isolated. They're not as collaborative as they could be.
yeah,
Definitely, you might be able to get 2 to 4 players in a game together with you, but that's not the same thing as collaborating.
yeah, and also the isolation is.
Hmm.
I'm sure there are people like me who actually get very nervous if you lose tactile communication with the real world. Total.
And
You
it
know,
is sensory
if I've got
deprivation.
yeah, if
Yeah,
I've got headphones on and can't hear if somebody bangs on the door, and if I've got a headset on so I can't see if
the
somebody's
keyboard,
about to come over and hit me,
right?
and you know, possibly I've got one of the attachments for Oculus that uses aromatherapy oils to generate smells. So I
Hmm.
can't even, if I had that contraption on, there might be somebody might set fire to something, and I wouldn't know there was a fire. I always feel that need to have a string, to
Hmm.
pull to the real world, even
Hmm.
though I can cope with quite a lot of immersion. The totality of some of the stuff that's being worked on is a bit much, and also, of course, a lot of what they call VR, as you said, is just 360 video. It also
Right. And see, I
it's
investigated some of those hardware and software interfaces in my research. So I wound up removing some of the so people could hear me speak as well as listen to the world. I made that possible, and I had to think through what do people who wear glasses, what's their experience like,
oh
so they
yeah,
don't have to fly blind, and then so I took away the immersive eye cups that totally cut off the any light from the world around you in my
right,
particular one. Then I did studies on stereoscopic versus monoscopic for how we perform tasks in these spaces. But the other really interesting thing is when you can't see the keyboard now, and
yeah,
we're kind of dependent on being able to talk by text as well as voice, and to make little notes, to interact with our devices. If I took the mouse away and the keyboard, how would you function in this space? And so that's when you start really thinking about, are you even comfortable in the virtual world, much
mm,
less in the real, integrating with the real world. So you bring up all kinds of interesting points, and we think about that sensory deprivation when
yeah.
we think about creating these spaces. That's right.
Yeah, you're right about I mean, the only real, well, apart from cardboard variations, the only real one I've got is the Oculus Go, and I don't really.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's good enough for the experience, and I hardly ever put it on, which proves the point. Um, Oddly
Uh-huh.
enough, the absence of the keyboard and mouse doesn't. I've got used to using the single controller that comes with
That's
that,
good.
and clicking up the menus and navigating around and clicking. But I don't miss the keyboard and mouse, but mostly because I don't think there's anything in there that is really that I would want to be doing that needed the keyboard and
See, I'm
mouse.
a content creator.
Yeah.
And when I was working on my world, I would wear the head mounted display device and try to create content. See, you can't create content without touching either the mouse or the keyboard. That
True.
just
Yeah.
doesn't happen. You can talk to it all you want to, but
It says
so yeah.
if you
Go ahead.
have been watching the news earlier, one of the pages I brought up was a new device that fits between two fingers.
Right.
It's only $200, and it's sort of like that probably makes it compare with the Leap Motion, but
Which I have the Leap Motion, and I
yeah,
do like gesture-based interfaces, but there's something about the tactile interaction with these devices that
uh,
that fits our cognitive complexity. See, a lot of the tasks we perform are highly complex when we're creating content, and
yeah.
just talking about it or gesturing often is a limit.
The only thing that I think would work there is sort of something like a very tight fitting, like latex or lycra type glove,
Hmm.
where you had enough sensors to replicate, all the things your hands do. It's not just how the fingers move and stuff, as anybody knows. Even if you pick up a piece of plasticine and put it on the table and mold it like clay, you're not just using your fingers and pressure and all that. It's like a it's like an all points operation, tactile wise. You can never do. I had a program called a Morpheum at one point,
Hmm.
which allowed me to create 3D flash objects, and it worked. Basically, when you opened a new file, you got a ball of like putty, but it was perfect, perfectly symmetrical like a ball, and you would mold what you wanted by applying pressure, or so you pull bits of the ball out. It's like starting with a bowl of
Sure.
clay and then making a sculpture out of it. Now I found fun. I really did, even though I was having to use the mouse to do it.
Oh, sure.
But anyway, we better move on. I can see we're getting into one of our more
Tech
general
times.
conversations. I miss our long chats here. Right? Okay. So virtual reality versus virtual worlds, the SmackDown. Valerie Hill, I know, of course, the librarian, and yeah. So that should be good. Let's
And
move
Marie
move
Vance
on.
is a scientist, so she's going to be looking at some of the technical and wonderful. That's Anne Vans Lapis. And then
Right.
Bethany Winslow, who also has an art session on Sunday.
Right. Now, we're coming now to something I don't really know anything about because um,
This is new this year.
she's never. Yeah, we're back to Maria. I mean, last year I think Maria's actual panel, which was today, she normally does business or enterprise sort of panels, and it
Hmm.
didn't even happen. I didn't. So I really have no idea. Well, let me click. Who's on this? Do we know?
No,
No.
there's no info on it yet because we're still getting confirmation from the panelists. But
Right.
essentially, Maria has been working on writing and creativity. And at the conference, we tried, remember years ago, we used to have tracks for creativity and
Oh yes.
business and
Yeah.
technology and education. And now we try to have everything so that everyone can attend all of the sessions, so they don't ever have to make choices and have competition between the sessions. And so this year we thought it'd be wonderful to have a creativity panel. So she's talking to writers and artists and a variety of folks, and we're still waiting on the confirmation. So that'll come online as soon as it's available.
It's we know it is. Well, I'm glad to know I wasn't the last one to get my stuff in.
No, no. The panels,
Okay.
by the way, traditionally the panels are always the last to confirm because you have to realize the conference is happening so close to the holidays, right? That
Yeah,
it's
and you're
very
hurting.
difficult for people. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course you're hurting different people, unlike a talk where it's up to the
Hmm.
person fitting in a slot. You
And time zones.
and time zones. Yes, that too. Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, I know on my I'm not quite sure where Blair is, but I mean, Adam Frisby's SciSpace, for example, is although SciSpace is in the UK here, Adam himself is in Australia, and usually I suspect when he comes on the panel, it'd be about 4 or 5 in the morning for him. He'll be getting up before breakfast to do it. So it won't be a late
Hmm.
night, because they'll already be Sunday, if you see what I mean. So yeah, yeah, the down under it really gets to be uh, a mind game. Right,
That's right.
okay. We got. Oh, hang on. I've gone to. Okay,
Scott Dolphin.
after the creativity, Scott Dolphin, a graduate school residency in virtual reality.
Now, this is
Uh,
part of the SUNY New York Empire State College's Masters in Learning program, Emerging Technology. And I suspect he's affiliated with Eileen O'Connor's work, and she's been hosting one-day conferences for them and trying to encourage more and more of the educators and students there to participate, design, and create learning content in these spaces. So
Right.
this is one of the graduates. Yeah.
Yeah. So reports on events, conclusions derived from the post-event. Okay. Now,
Then we
design
have
challenges in
yeah.
use-safe VR environments.
This is a
Describe.
continuation. I mean, a different topic. This is the instructor, Dr. Eileen O'Connor, and she has spoken with us for the last 2 or 3 years, but now their program has really taken off, and they're thinking about virtual reality um, educational experiences for underage, for K through 12, K through 8. That's kindergarten through 8th grade, or ages 5 through 13, or yeah, I don't know which exact age groups, but she's thinking about all the issues because it's very complex to host
Yeah.
classes in these spaces based on both, school board policies, on web safe spaces for underage participants, that kind of thing. So she's talking through a lot of those kinds of issues, and they're working on it. That's part of their educational program for training teachers.
Okay, there's something very interesting she mentions in that too, which of course I'll be covering on the Sunday panel. I plan to work with affordances such as those coming available through Kitely's virtual private networks,
Hmm.
which is actually that's the open source high fidelity code. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, good. So yeah, everything sort of connects.
That's right.
I was very worried that almost everything I'm doing at the conference has nothing to do with OpenSim anymore, except it's a lie to it. But yeah,
But all these technologies intersect really,
they
and
do.
it's the people using all these different technologies and trying to think, how do we blend them into a cohesive experience.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, and I was wrong.
Okay.
Bethany is next.
Yes, Bethany's next art gallery, a plug and play. What? Oh,
Open education resource, which just means
oh,
Creative
right.
Commons, or
I thought it
in
was
other words, people can get a copy of this stuff or use it themselves.
I
Yes.
thought it was a misspelling of OAR.
No, no. It's open education, and it's a
Right.
real
Okay.
hot movement right now. I'm writing an
Yeah.
OER course as we speak. Yep.
So it's oh yeah, that sounds interesting. So
It's an art gallery.
yeah, so basically she's just talking about creating an Inworld event, basically, which happens
Well,
to be an art gallery, I guess, from what I can tell there. Okay, yeah, well, that's good. I won't
be
dwell on it
wonderful.
because we do need to move on. And yeah, now we're in the evening when, of course, we have our own music stage here now on its own region. So 6 p.m.
OSCC music. That's
Yeah,
right.
6 p.m. through to 9 p.m. You've got Liberty Bell lyric, James Olmos, who's everywhere. He must be a good publicist, James Olmos, because he's on every platform all the while.
That's
And
great.
GJ Sheldon. So yeah, um, two of those I'm familiar with because they're on my Discord, Hypergrid Discord.
And Liberty Bell has DJ'd for us in the past. And we want to thank all three of our DJs for providing 3 hours of amazing music.
Yeah. And who was it? Was it Liberty Bell? No, it wasn't Liberty Bell. It was somebody else who did it the other night. The
Oh, that was
stress
Rosa
test.
Alexei.
Rosa, yeah, Rosa
Yeah,
O'Keefe. Yeah, yeah,
Rosa.
yeah,
There we
yeah.
go.
Rosa, right, yeah. Another Discord um, regular. Right. Not back to, forward to, I should say, Sunday
The
morning,
next.
7 a.m. This is Pacific time, of course, so it will already be late afternoon, at least in Europe. Taking
Hmm.
stock of proven and new educational simulation use cases. Sometimes really want to know who dreams up these bloody titles.
Well, she's at Tulane
Yeah,
University, Dr. Kay
yeah,
McClellan,
I know that.
and
Yeah,
yeah, but she keeps thinking about, and many of us do, we would like to see us move away from traditional 2D course platforms where we're all text heavy with a little bit of graphics and video, and
oh
think
yeah,
about these immersive experiences and how it really augments the learning. It's not just the ability to perform tasks that model real world procedures, but it's also how it stimulates the brain and how it forms memory triggers, and how 1 hour spent in World is worth 3 or 4 hours spent in the classroom, or
Yeah,
just talking about the subject. So
I
so
think
she's
it.
trying to build those use cases. Yes, go ahead.
I think in a very boring way, it also it runs parallel with another issue, and that is how education is done, not just lifelong learning, but um, the days like when I was being educated, inverted commas, around the educated, when
Hmm.
it was being done to me, it was all a matter of learning dates, learning things, and having,
Memorization.
and then
Hmm.
sitting an exam where you remembered that stuff, whether it was relevant or not. There was hardly anything that was to do with exploring, making up your own mind, or investigating, or focusing on the things that maybe there's a topic and there's like 20 subtopics, and one of those subtopics really intrigues you, and you will be told, no, 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 that's just part of it, it's the whole thing we want. You just didn't
Hmm.
have that freedom to pursue um to pursue further things. It was all, you've got to remember this, you've got to remember this, whether it's dates and places in history, or places in geography, or formulas in mathematics. I mean, it was, I don't know. Um, but to me, it horrifies me to hear that the, kids in kids mostly, of course, but still go to classrooms these days, and there are still teachers around who don't encourage kids to say go on the internet to explore research what they're studying. They want them to learn the thing that's in the rule book, and possibly the teacher is 60 years old and has never updated their own knowledge,
Hey, hey, hey! Watch that.
So, I mean, the virtual world, of course, yeah. Oh, sorry, sorry. But well,
I'm
I
teasing
am
you.
too. We're two of a kind in age, so don't worry about that.
But
But
no, you're right. The old
uh,
patterns, are not well supported. But the difficulty, we're now seeing a shift where people don't learn and remember things. They
yeah,
instead go, well, I can look it up when I need it. So I'll just
well, yeah,
I'll just constantly keep my phone handy or my device, and I'll just look things up when I need them, which is nice. But it's very difficult when you have a time sensitive moment to apply that as knowledge, if it's all borrowed and you have to go look it up every time you want to make a decision. So
uh,
somehow we need these experiences that form memory triggers and help you
yeah.
to understand when to apply it and how to apply it, and new ways of thinking about knowledge. That's right.
It's
So
just,
so she's trying to defend it. You have to
yeah,
realize, for many of us, when we present at this conference, we also share the live stream link, and we refer back to the videos. We put these in our curriculum vitae and in our books and papers. And we're trying to build a case for administrators and champions to help fund these programs so that we can see growth in the use of the metaverse and in 3D learning experiences.
yeah. It's education is a big, big topic, really, when you think about it. It's almost mathematics, having enough resources in memory and understandings to be able to constantly put the two and two together and call them up in, say, like you say, a conversation or something, where you don't need to look them up. You have that, not only the certain amount of knowledge, but also the knowledge of how to put other knowledge together. Um, yeah. Let me move on before I get myself in a complete
It's okay.
another rabbit hole. Right, Echo Voice for Open Simulator. Lisa and Frank Rudolph. This is a bit.
And the description has changed. But you have to realize, when presenters fill out the form, they don't always know what we mean by abstract. We really mean the description that's going to be visible on the program to the public. But
Uh,
essentially, Lisa and Frank Ruloff have been working with a team to design two tools, and maybe more, but they're going to present two tools that will help with the interface to these worlds. It'll also help with accessibility. So this one's Echo Voice, and it's an alternative to Vivox, in case you're wondering. Because
right.
and some of you may be saying, well, why would you ever want to do that? because we know all things change. And what would happen if Vivox went offline
Oh, well,
or
yeah,
the
exactly.
service was no longer available? So we need people thinking about all the different moving parts that provide this amazing experience for us
Uh,
and
well, I
thinking
think
about the future.
a couple of grids for a long while. Yeah, was it called Mumble or something?
Yes,
Because
but it was a little awkward.
5 volts are very generous in allowing it to
Hmm.
be used for
They
free
are.
for up to 50 avatars in OpenSim. But they are actually a commercial product, and it's nothing to say that overnight they wouldn't start charging, per user or something. So
Hmm.
yeah, something independent for sound would be um, well, very useful to put in. And they, of course, are the two, aren't they? I presume behind is it Scenescape or the one I didn't tried out and didn't like? Well, we'll come to that anyway.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's voice. I love the title of this, Dockerizing. I'm into. I think I'm into
Dockers.
Dockerizing. I love my docs, and I love interfaces that. Well, I don't know. I'm in Singularity here at the moment, and I hate it. But because it looks like Second Life 10 years ago, but beside the point.
So this is
Yeah.
a
So
technology talk by Robert Adams, Mr.
yeah,
Blue, who is, of course, well known for his development of Bullet Sim, the physics engine. And now
sure.
he's
Yeah.
going to think about architecture, and he's going to think about using, and yes, this is tied to Windows,
Yeah.
but he's going to think about how we architect into containers for both the simulator software and the database.
This is the sort of thing. I mean, this I find very interesting. It's something I could never do, but would really want to see.
Hmm.
Um, Thinking back to Melanie's revelations last year about the work she'd done with Unity as with not Unity, sorry, Unreal Engine
Unreal,
to
yeah.
provide elements of a new interface. I mean, basically, as a designer, graphic designer from way back when, even in the web, the idea you got a little GIF or something, and it was a button, and then that button would have a script, and it would trigger something, but it would not necessarily interact with other buttons. You'd press the different buttons to combine the things in the interface you want. And to me, it sounded like what Melanie had at the time was a whole look, components for a look that needed somebody to script the behavior of these look components to do
Right, how they would
things
integrate. That's right.
to do things, and obviously whatever was scripted would have to be sending a command to the existing OpenSim structure. It wasn't like you were building a new engine underneath. So somebody needed to take the engine and the graphic interface and provide the way that they would sort of connect together. And I may have got this wrong, but when Robert's talking here about Dockerizing, this is just what I'm thinking. If you've got the dock and the modules of the dock can communicate with the code in a new way, we're also talking about possibly a new viewer, aren't we? Or have I got this all wrong? Is Dockerizing
I
in this
think of this as
context?
the software side and the database side rather than see the viewer is what the user sees. That's
Yeah,
how they see the world. So that's
yeah,
what Melanie was presenting was how do users see the environment, the shadowing, the some of these special effects could we
yeah,
integrate with the Unreal Engine? And what he's talking about is optimizing and thinking about how do we upgrade and install these products and how do they behave and how are we positioning ourselves for the future for standalone and grid mode. So we're in an architectural discussion of software in his session, and it's an important discussion because you can't
yeah,
have growth without thinking about how do we make this better and how do we
yeah.
optimize it, and then how do we position ourselves for the next few releases.
So what would you say? Well, obviously I'll see this when it happens, but would you say that the Docker this is more like converting parts of the open similar code into kind of modules
It's how it
that work
architects. So
together?
that's
Yeah,
you can think of it that way. That's it's using containers and multiple containers.
yeah.
This is a proposal that Robert's been working on for some time. When we were still on the Moses project, the military open simulator enterprise
Oh,
strategy, he brought it up then. And the challenge, that some of the members of the community felt was that it's it's a Windows product. And of course, the question is how we think about it and how we apply that, you know, in a broad spectrum way. It's like at Virtual Harmony, we're running everything on Mac servers, but of course we're using
Yeah.
Linux, right? And so,
Yeah.
so, so it's just convenient that we have these machines, but we're really using open source software and open source ways of thinking. So if you start using the Docker, what we're going to be interested in hearing is how that integrates with the open source environment. And so I'm looking forward to it.
I would say, is Docker a Windows specific thing?
I haven't worked with them, so
I
I'm not going to commit, but
Yeah,
I do
that
believe that that was part of the discussion in the Moses group on the listserv was the fact that they were reluctant to move to it because it was a Windows product.
yeah,
And it may
I
just
would
be that
say
name, not the
yeah.
architectural concept. So,
Yeah, the name was familiar too, and I may have come
mhm.
across it on Windows. Although it's the sort of name that can mean a lot of things. You might even have different software called Docker that does, one is like a dock on the, like a Macintosh dock,
Well, I could go look it all up, but
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have many more sessions to talk about.
yeah, exactly. So move on there. But I'm very allergic to things that are Windows or Mac only, for that matter.
Uh,
Right.
well, but you have to realize we're running this on something.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, it's got to be run on something, but yeah, so something that's multi-platform. Right, Guinevere, learn the language through games in virtual worlds. This is Hiker
oh,
again,
and by the
as
way,
usual.
I did
Oh,
look it
I
up.
missed. Sorry, I missed Lynn Barrett.
That's okay. Well,
Yeah.
let's finish up. By the way, the Docker is written in Go, and it is platform agnostic, and of course,
Ah,
so it's at the operating. It's a virtualization at the operating system level. So I'll leave it at that, but don't think it's just a Windows product by any means. But that's how the discussion
yeah,
was going.
yeah.
Anyway, so next we have the virtual learning village.
Yep.
Actually,
The
we don't.
center.
That's
Oh,
a schedule change. The
oh,
speakers had a conflict. They had another event they have to speak at. So we're going to have a break then. And we need a break, trust me, because the stream team and all of the moderators, wonderful volunteers, the organizing committee, everyone needs a little break. And so that segment, we're off for 30 minutes. You can enjoy the expo regions or get some food.
fair enough. So we're moving forward to 9:30 a.m. And
That's
this
right.
is where we have Hiker with learning language through games in virtual worlds. This is really what Hiker does. Anything to do with
Right.
multiple languages, I think of her. Um, yeah, I don't know if
Over the
she's got
years, she's
anything
had a
new.
variety of grants and
Yeah,
she's used quite a bit of video, virtual worlds, and other technologies in a blended way to teach foreign languages and English as a second language and
yeah.
other tops. And she brings communities together, which is really important. Now, the speakers, she's still confirming her co presenters. These were co presenters last year. And she's taking it to the next level as to what they've been doing this past year.
All right. Okay. Well, I know Hiker, of course. And she was actually invaluable to us again with the international expo from a couple of years back. Where
Hmm.
basically bridging languages. Because virtual world or not, when people speak, verbally in totally different languages is
Yeah, she hosts at least one or
uh,
two conferences a year through a conferencing tool that bridges across a lot of virtual worlds, including ScienceBase, OpenSim, and other worlds. And then you're right, she was part of the Web World, the Second Life Languages Conference. That's right. In the old days, and the Edunation, that's what I was trying to think of. Edunation back in 2005,
yes,
2006.
of course, yes.
So it's been a long journey, using this. And of course, Webheads is what it was called on the Yahoo groups. So it all
Oh,
began long
that's a
before.
new one on
Yeah,
me. I didn't go that far back.
I do. I was part of Webheads. And so I was always thinking about loving the fact that there's so many different ways we can learn. And of course, virtual worlds are perfect for learning a language because you're in context and you're interacting
Yeah,
with the objects, talking about them. And of course, it's collaborative.
yeah. Yeah, I like the old walking through a French village, and just like the French, they refuse to acknowledge English, so you're forced to try again to order something in French.
That's right.
And then you finally get a response and you realize you don't understand the response, but it's all part of the intricacies of language learning. Yeah. Okay, now something of great interest to me. I was almost wondering about putting Gita again on the Saturday panel, but since we're not really talking viewers so much, but of course this is Worlds on the Web again, which is very
Hmm.
much a similar area to what we'll be talking about with Mozilla. Um, there seem to be actual quite several of them. I mean, this is
There
Dita's
are.
thing. Um, I mean, I had something, I forget what it was here, or something I did separately last year was Singer Girl.
Singer Girls, yeah, 3D
Um,
web worlds. And
yeah,
she has taken a lot of content from the regions, put it
yeah,
into these worlds. So there's this integration where you're creating the content in the virtual world, experiencing it with students in these web worlds, which provides
uh,
a lot of affordances for people who have limited technology or very little time to learn how to use a viewer.
yeah, and it relates too to what we spoke about right at the beginning, where
Hmm.
where we view OpenSim as a creators platform to create things that we will export and deploy elsewhere. The fact that we can create here and not only export it, I don't know, to Science Space or VR chat or whatever, but we can also deploy it to something as simple as on the web.
Hmm.
Um,
And Dieter teaches classes. And of course, so we
yeah.
may be hearing about how some of his classes have been going in these spaces.
Yeah, well, I think from last time I talked to Dieter, I mean, I think he sort of works with the German government to
That's right.
they actually network, schools throughout
That's right.
Germany. Where so each school actually has its own virtual set of classrooms. There's virtual schools, and well, I don't know
That's
how it works because that is, um, you know, the main part of those conversations are in German, so I'm lost. But
sure.
yeah. But no,
And
I
Steve
think that's
Levine's
yeah,
joining him on that. And
yeah,
Steve, of course, is with the Dimension Beyond. And so,
right,
and many of these projects all stimulated from either the Moses Project or from other groups, and then they've spun into their own efforts. These
yeah.
wonderful, uh, and then they share, and that's why you're seeing all these different instances that take them into new directions. It's because they're sharing content. Lisa Laxton at the
Yeah.
Infinite Metaverse Alliance with Frank Ruloff, and then of course Dieter and Steve going in this direction, and then Singer Girl with the 3D web worlds, and then there are others too.
Well, talking of Lisa and Frank, the next session at 11 a.m. is them again with the Seagate viewer. We
That's right. And this one, now she's thinking about accessibility. So she's not just thinking about a simple version of the viewer for that's appropriate for new users who don't want to build, right? Students who are
yeah,
first getting into World or for business meetings. She's also thinking about accessibility for people who have needs when it comes to either vision or hearing or other kinds of physical needs. And so Lisa's putting a lot of effort into that part of the work as well as the cognitive needs. So how we think and reason when we see the viewer, how do we respond naturally, and how can we use it? So right now they're in
ah,
beta testing, and she's going to release it at the conference.
ah. Well, I've already tried it. I don't
Well,
know
of course, you're
however.
part of the beta.
I
It's
must have found a link to it somewhere because
That's right.
or maybe the one released at the conference will be different. I don't
Well, I
know,
don't
but
know if it's
yeah,
going to be
yeah,
different, but I don't think the community is aware of it. That's what I'm saying. And of
yeah.
course, we want to thank Cinders Roxley for donating the Alchemy Code
Oh
and
yeah,
support for all of this. Because, and see, that's what's beautiful about this is if you start seeing the connections between people and their designs, their efforts, how we all come together, and how things are evolving, that
yeah.
wouldn't be possible without a community.
Yeah. Well, no, for sure. Cinders is very active there. Well, actually, it's funny because like Krista's onlook was derived
Mm-hmm.
from singularity, which I happen to be in at the moment, although I don't like
Mm-hmm.
this very much, I've got to admit. And so this is almost the same as, derived from alchemy. Well,
Mm-hmm.
maybe there's something else is going to come along, which is a simplified variant of Firestorm or something,
And see, Lisa looked at Singularity, and the Singularity team came to the Moses project and talked about their design as well. So you have to realize all these ideas percolated off of
Yeah,
that ran for about 8 years, that 8 year effort. And so that's how we all form connections that continue and are
yeah,
visible at the OSCC conference.
wonderful. I think, of course, yeah, at the end, Moses was Halcyon, wasn't it?
No, there was two versions. So yes and no is the answer.
Right,
We
yeah,
had a version that was OpenSim compatible, and then we did fork to the Halcyon effort. And of course, we had an entire group for that, a different login, a different. So you're right, we did migrate to it, but I was still running the other as well. And so I take the long view about all of these things. The reason we forked it is we were also using the NVIDIA physics engine, right? And
right.
so PhysX. So we were looking, and of course, the reason we did that is we were going for realism for simulation design for training purposes. And so we needed a different set of rules to support that. They also were going for realism in photogrammetry, which is taking a picture of you with 90 cameras, your real life person, and making a skin that looks like Mal Burns. And so we were taking it in different directions in the Moses project towards the end.
Yeah.
But early on, it was about avatar scalability and usability and packaging the OpenSim software in such a way that it was really easy for workplaces, for education, and for entertainment users to be able to install it.
The reason I asked about Helsing was because although Helsing wasn't really compatible with OpenSim for various reasons, it had moved a long way.
Hmm.
But when Inworlds disappeared, um, and there was a new grid started up, it was using Helsing too. They've now gone.
Right.
But I was just wondering because
There's
there are a
still an
couple.
effort in that.
Yeah, I've got a couple of Discord channels here. There's a virtual Halcyon Virtual World Services project
Hmm.
and a grid, Amaryllis Grid, I believe it's called, which I
Hmm.
think is Halcyon. So that's another strand. I mean, actually, it's closely related to OpenSim, of course. It's not like a major new platform, but that's another strand that is still, it doesn't have the hypergrid, but otherwise it's still popping along there, I think. And Moses, of course, was the first, I think. Or possibly in Wales itself. I'm not sure, but
Inworlds
no,
probably
it
was
was
because
developed, didn't it?
yeah, because
Yeah,
Moses, I think, originated in 2010. I joined the
yeah,
project in 2011, or maybe it was later that
yeah,
same year. And then, of course, it spread from then, from that
yeah.
point.
No, you're right. It was actually in Wales came first, but I tend to think of Moses, especially in the latter part, as the intricate integrated into the Halcyon thing. So, anyway, moving on, moving on. Let's get to the
Went
afternoon, or at least 12:30 p.m. It's close to the afternoon. A VR tool to improve your public speaking skills. Yes, Miriam L. Um,
Yamri.
well,
And she's a graduate student who has designed this tool. She's written all the software and everything. And so she came into World. She's never been in OpenSim before.
oh,
And what's amazing is with her background in VR, she was able to very quickly navigate, get to the presenter booth, start working with all the content, test out her slides. And so it was like the fastest ramping an orientation curve I've ever seen. And so that's what's
oh.
beautiful about these integrated tools. So she's going to share with us if you've ever been afraid of speaking in public in person, she has a tool
Oh,
that's going to help.
when I was younger, I was scared. Stage fright
Hmm.
was the word. Now I don't give a damn. It's funny. Um, but I do know her. Her name's very familiar.
She's new to
So
us, and she had submitted a
I must know.
proposal last year, but we had a
Yeah,
conflict on the times. So of course, this year she's sharing her research,
I must know her in some
and
other
she's out of
context.
Madrid, by the way.
Yeah, right. I know that name. It must be from well, my networks or something, because
She was on the
they
schedule
are.
last year.
Yeah. Biometrics and two. God, I want to be navigating with my Apple Watch next. Right. Um, not so funny. It could happen. Right. Now, 15th of December, the Sunday, 1 p.m. to
That's you.
1:50. Yeah, it is not an expo tour at
No,
all.
it isn't.
This is, I forget what I've actually ended up calling this. Basically, there are two separate companies. One is Kitely, who are well known on the hypergrid and with the marketplace anyway, and the other is Tivoli, who are well, new, not new people though, and both have actually adopted High Fidelity's Open SIM code as a base for extended projects um, with from what I gather, a kind of similarity to the concept of the hypergrid.
Mm,
And I know that both Ilan at Kitely and Jessica at uh, um, Tivoli, yeah, were both very keen that they should actually do the session together too, which is also a good sign because
great.
you don't,
Good.
they obviously want to be talking. Um, and so again, it's not the hypergrid panel or even a hypergrid jumping tour. It's
Well, that's
something
good
completely
though.
different, but again, it is sort of relevant. And especially, there was the thing I saw earlier where somebody was also sounding like they were talking about Kindly's new networking thing, which is obviously the same thing as
Hmm.
the Hive Diversity project. And I'm very glad to see this happening too, because a lot of work was put into that code, and High Fidelity were always clear it would be mostly open source, and I think it actually, because High Fidelity themselves have now moved into collaboration um, sort of exercises with the enterprise, then it may be that some things like domain name services that they were originally going to keep under their own wings, so to speak, may be open source too. I don't know. I'm just hypothesizing that if almost everything to do with the underlying code of High Fidelity was open source, then it's got a ready-made hypergrid built into it. So we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, that is not an Expo Zone tour. it's it's all about open source hyperfidelity, and it should be a good one too. Not least because I'm hosting it. Ha ha. Right, being a liminal. This is a weird one. What's liminal? Um,
Oh, did you miss some? Oh, I thought Ramesh was next.
oh, sorry. Expo. Expos. Sorry, I'm getting
Yeah, the
Expo
basic
tour.
architecture of Resmela.
I've jumped straight from Expo Tour to Expo Zone Tour, right?
That's
See,
okay.
see where my mouse is moving? I
Well,
left
see,
two out completely.
well, and to explain to everyone, on the
Yeah,
breaks, they're actually called break and then expo tour. So if you're not going to get food or drink or taking a cognitive break, you can go over to the expo regions and check out all the cool content on 5 regions.
absolutely. Yep, it's not just the talks.
Nope.
Right.
But here's
Now
Ramesh
this
again with
right,
the technical side. Yeah.
yeah, I was just going to say this is Ramesh again, and we are modules, apps, app sets, map sets, context sensitive heads up display. I love this
How you
stuff.
use his stuff, how it
Yeah,
works, and how it's produced. And then right after him, you'll notice there is the use of
you
it
use and this
and the
is
bill origin.
this is the person who's using it delivering her
That's
report.
right.
Yes, I get you.
And she's
Uh,
using it for gaming and learning goals. So that's going to be cool to see how his scenes provide the basis, the environment for the gaming.
sure. Great. Oh, there's a
Now, I
load
have
of
to admit,
it.
I scheduled them, so I'm responsible for how these things bridge together. So I think of them as the story continues with a little 10-minute break. See?
Well, I was just thinking that actually. Now we've been going through it. There's a lot of interesting stuff here, and they do seem to be adjacent,
Hmm.
or a lot of them seem to be adjacent to each other, don't they?
That's
Um,
right.
I'm still trying to figure out what liminal is.
The Liminal is a
I
journal.
thought I knew
It's
these.
out of Denver University. And so being liminal is this notion of, well, first off, you can publish with us, is what we're saying. I happen to be on the editorial board for it, but I'm not as active as Kate Novak and Chris Lukes are. And of
Ah,
course, so there's the journal. And the journal's not just articles about education, it also includes movie and book reviews. It includes all kinds of opportunities for people to get connected and share ideas. So there's a journal that comes out quarterly, and then there's this lit RPG, which is literature role playing game, where you take a concept,
right.
a story, or whatever, and of course you turn it into a game. And let's face it, OpenSim and virtual worlds are perfect environments for that kind of thing. Then we have the metagame, which bridges over things like Ready Player One and all the various games, game simulations, and designs that we have. And then set in virtual worlds. So that's their panel for this year. I think last year, Delightful and I spoke on the panel as well. This year, they're going to talk about some of that duality for deep learning and
Ah.
creativity.
It's so funny. I think I've learned a new word here because I mean I'm used to using the word subliminal, but
Uh huh.
I've never used the word
The
liminal.
liminal.
It's really weird. But now I think of it as yeah, I get it, it's we don't all of us know every single word in the dictionary. I guess I've just never had cause to use it. I understand it now. However, I think how interesting. We live and learn every
It
day.
means a transitional or
Yeah,
initial stage to a process, but it's also a boundary or a threshold. So, and there's quite a few meanings for it. But yes,
yeah.
we're using it as a noun. It's normally an adjective.
So yeah, I presume there's an upper stage too. So you got the subliminal, liminal, and extraliminal, or whatever. No, never mind, never mind. I've been on air too long. I'm going
I was
down the
going to say,
rabbit
I'm going
hole.
to need coffee before that one.
I go down the rabbit hole fast. Yeah. Right, open sim education is dead. Let's bury it. Oh, there's a good one.
Poor
This
Spiff.
Whitfield.
You remember how I said use cases are important because we need champions to fund our projects, to give approval for us to teach in virtual worlds, and to so we need to get the message out there. But there are some
Ah,
administrators who are still reluctant to bridge,
yeah.
to take the classroom out of the online space or the physical classroom and actually put it in an immersive space. So he's now taking the stance of, is it dead? And if so, let's bury it. But of course, we're not going to. We see the transformational opportunities, and many of us. I've taught 52 university classes set in virtual worlds. So, but
Ah,
he's going to take that tactic, and he teaches a grade school. So he teaches students who are probably sixth grade to eighth grade, and you know, so they're like 11-year-olds to 13-year-olds, maybe younger. And of course, that's always hard to get permission, because of the web rules, for under 13, right? For
So
certain
you
age
think
groups.
the implication is the decline is due to censorship by
It's
schools?
not a decline. I think at his school, he's having hard time with his recent administration finding a champion to say, yes, this is a great idea. Please continue. Remember, he's with Virtual Pioneers. He's with all those
Mm.
history groups in
Oh yeah.
Kitely that do all the history simulations. And he's been working on this for quite a while. And he's a leader in the ISTE Virtual Environments Network, which of course spans over OpenSim and Second Life and other worlds.
And
But yeah,
he's stateside, isn't he?
yes.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not right. I don't know why I was thinking of somebody else in Britain. Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, I wonder. Depressing decline it is, but
Well, it's for
do
him and
do
it's
you think
for
it's the censorship
younger.
objectives, or do you think it's something about OpenSim, the platform?
No,
Is
it's
how
not. It
many?
has nothing to do with OpenSim as the negation.
Yeah,
The negation is nowadays we live in such a litigious society, which means
yeah,
everyone's suing, and so
yeah.
we have to be very careful when we're educating children that we provide safe spaces that we control, and that operate very much like a school system where the campus is closed and
Well,
we
that's actually
control
why
access and
OpenSim has always been perfect for that, despite the
right.
hybrid and
But
stuff.
convincing your the people who fund you, the administrators, the principals, the people who run the school board systems, they have to believe also. And see, we had the beauty of the hype cycle when everyone's talking about open source worlds and virtual worlds and even Second Life, when they're talking about that and there's a lot of press and media attention, there's a lot of funding. And as soon as you hit the trough of disillusionment where you realize it takes a little bit of work to justify the learning experience and to show
yeah,
directly that students are learning. And then as you get towards the beneficial use and the plateau of productivity, the hype, the articles about it have declined, and then people get the impression that the technology is dead. That's
yeah,
why
for sure.
conferences like this are so important because we're keeping the
Keeping the flag
conversation. That's
keeping the
right.
flag flying. Yeah. No, no, that's what is worrying because we're just a small conference in a smaller,
Hmm.
even smaller pond, really. But it's
But it
I,
bridges.
yeah, it's a discussion that maybe we're not having that should be having, and that is ways of taking the platform more mainstream awareness. I suppose Second Life is never going to do that, and it's going to cost them money.
No,
Um,
no, and the social side there is
maybe
so important.
Facebook schools will
That's
come
right.
along.
That's right.
Then everybody will want to have a Facebook school. Yeah,
Well,
it's
Facebook is not the right answer either. They've
no, of
noticed a
course it's
decline
not.
in some of their
Yeah,
users
and
because
it's
over
not
time
private.
you're going to see
Yeah.
every technology. I mean, imagine if we were talking about MySpace. Remember back in the
Oh
day
yeah,
that was hot. Nowadays it's a music platform, right? For
yeah,
musicians to and artists to talk about their work. But now so you see this evolution over time, and when we're so close to it, we don't realize its impact in 5 to 10 years, but
yeah.
educators and researchers do, and so we try to keep abreast of it. That's why the next session with the community virtual libraries is so important, because they're intersecting across a variety of worlds. They have the virtual worlds database, and they're trying to formalize the fact that these worlds are vibrant and they matter, and that we're getting a lot done, not just for education, entertainment,
Uh,
social, everything matters. Art.
this. We're now on the 5 p.m., which is Val Hill again. Virtual World Educational Projects Overview. This is what we're talking about now. Yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. And of course, this
Yeah.
is the community virtual libraries, and they ran the SmackDown the day before when they were thinking about VR versus virtual worlds. Now they're thinking about how do we formalize and make people aware of what exists here. And I know many people are saying, well, just go to OpenSimWorld or go to Outworlds to the directory there or go to all these other areas. And I says, but that's not visible to the world. We need a way to
Yeah.
also connect places and events to content and experiences that are safe for all age groups, and so we need awareness of that, right?
Yeah. Well, not even just safe for all age groups. We just need a very
Hmm.
good
Right.
awareness system of what's there.
Sure.
A bit like somewhere you can go to find every virtual
So we
installation,
will.
event, whatever
Yeah.
online, regardless even of platform, maybe. But
That's right. So anyone who
yeah,
has not registered their virtual world with the Virtual Worlds database, please check out their website, attend the event, or go search for Virtual Worlds database, and you can add your region to the list and get recognized for the work you're doing. You can let
yeah,
them know if it's public or private, obviously, but there's nothing wrong with having a listing that recognizes your effort.
sure. Uh, right. Oh, yeah, I'm getting
We're
distracted
almost
there.
at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was no, I was getting distracted because I was suddenly thinking, um, we've got nothing about Discord, the sheer wealth of channels and stuff on
Hmm.
Discord. But in
That's
fact,
right.
that's becoming a problem itself. I mean, navigating just how much there is there. Okay, the final session on the final day at final 30. I mean, 5:30.
Now this is a special one. And by the way, on that last session, we did
Real world
we,
applications of virtual reality saving newborn lives. It's special.
right.
Carry on.
No, I was just going to mention Elise Donovan Jones was part of that last session, the CVL one, because we hadn't mentioned Elise. And she, of course, is our Nonprofit Commons. She's working with our library at Nonprofit Commons with another coordinator, and then also, so we're bridging between all these different worlds, all these different groups, and then of course all these different ways of advertising and curating content. So now we have, it's Rachel Umorin, this real world applications of VR saving newborn lives. She's with a newborn unit. And of course, on Saturday and Sunday, she's working all day with newborns in crisis, right? In a university hospital environment. And then she's going to join us right after work to talk about how she uses VR to save lives for babies. And she opened that discussion last year with how she gets grant funding for these projects to help save lives for babies. So she's going to take it to the next level. And Rachel in the past, I don't know if anyone remembers this, but she had two regions and 25 bots set up, and she mirrored two villages in Africa, and she did the
Oh,
simulation
yes,
of
of
disease.
course.
Remember? Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. I do remember that.
And you
Oh,
could wear a backpack and a book, and you could travel with a friend, and one of you would catch a disease and the other person had to diagnose what it was. You'd click on it, you'd click on the book, you'd look at the symptoms, you'd try to figure it out, and you'd interact with these 25, they were bots, but they were actually
NPCs.
non-player characters. That's
Yeah,
right,
NPCs. Yeah.
NPCs. And so you would ask them questions, they would tell you how they're feeling, and based on the water and the climate, the mosquitoes and various other elements, you would try to figure out what's wrong and how to get seek a remedy. And you'd go to these little hospital installations and look under the microscope, and so it was wonderful, educational and also interactive and an immersive experience. So Rachel Umorin is a very skilled educator in immersive experiences, and so we're looking forward to this session. And of course, I'm hoping that there's no last minute crisis before her session, because that's the only reason why she might be delayed. But
Oh,
we're keeping our fingers crossed. I scheduled it an hour and a half after she gets off work. So
so you've hopefully she's got time.
that, that's right. But this is an important session because she's going to talk about newborn resuscitation, which is a
Yeah.
complex issue. My son needed resuscitation. He was in special care for 10 days, and then for 2 years he could not
Oh,
breathe easily on his own.
oh dear.
So this, and at the time I didn't
Uh,
realize that only 7% of the babies who are resuscitated make it. If someone had told me that statistic, I would have been horrified. And I
oh
actually
dear.
had to perform infant CPR to resuscitate him. So I'm looking forward to this session. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, but very important topic, but also fascinating that maybe VR can help, as it were.
See, and she talks about her
Yeah,
global health island at the end of that session description, the African traveler on OpenSim, and some of the
yeah.
works. She's had funding from the Gates Foundation and from various groups. So she's doing some wonderful work. And if people are interested, they can ask questions about how she gains funding and how she approaches these designs. I met Rachel
Uh,
after one of these conferences, and then she had me create animations for her so that her bots could be speaking on the phone or walking back and forth, or that guests could step on objects and perform those animations, be part of a natural simulation.
wonderful.
I know I'm
Well,
exhausting.
yeah, it is. No, actually, I was just I suddenly had a segue there, and I don't want it to sound.
Oh,
I
sorry.
don't. No, no, I just don't want it to sound trivial. But we're talking about newborns, right? But
Uh-huh.
I don't know whether you've seen a TV program called The Mandalorian.
I have not.
Well, it's a Star Wars offshoot,
Yes.
but
Yes.
the whole web is going berserk, including me. Forget the pussycats, the baby Yoda,
Yes.
and
No, Mel.
uh,
Say it isn't so.
well, oh, it's lovely.
I've watched it. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's not
Yes.
actually. I mean, actually, it really annoys me because it's not Yoda. Yoda's already an old man, and
Sure.
in the sequence, but it's a baby of that race, and it's
Right.
just got its ears and it's in its swathing
Cute.
clothes, and it's lovely. But I've suddenly realised if anybody can find me a baby Yoda avatar, in time for the conference.
There's
preferably
a
with
shout
move,
out.
preferably with
All
moving
right.
lips. Oh no, moving lips don't even matter. Yeah. Apparently Disney have got in on it, have realised how popular it is. They've already manufacturing the toys for Christmas.
They are.
It's all last minute because nobody knew the show was. But it's so damn cute. It's like a little kitten, but better. Anyway. So yes, I would like a baby Yoda avatar if anybody has got one of them going, or a baby, whatever the species is. Totally nothing to do with conference. Right, James, you've been filming away. It's very studiously here. Thank
Yeah,
you very
yeah.
much. Have you got any questions because or comments? Because of course you're part of all this too.
No, with
You'll be working with Marcus and I presume a few other volunteers doing
right,
filming.
right.
I will be around, but as far as I know, nobody wants my camera.
Is
So
it done yet?
what? The show?
The conference.
Oh,
There's
we might as well
a lot
be. I
of
mean,
work
we
being
No,
done.
we have the
Yeah.
final thing, the
oh
Dream Rave Pop by Ethereal, and
oh
of course
sorry,
this is his
yes.
sixth year.
I can't quite
Yes,
scroll that onto the page properly, but yes, Stream Pop Rave at Pirates Atoll. Yeah, this happens every year. It's sort of yeah, the
and we're
post.
Tradition.
so
Yep.
excited. Stranik is once again hosting it, and it's right after the last session. We'll go on over, and I have it down for 3 hours, but it might be a little
Yeah,
shorter. I don't know. Usually he does for like a hour or two, and then there's an after party after the party. So
sure. And this is actually a hypergrid jump away, basically, isn't
it
it?
is.
On
It's at
is it?
DigiWorlds. Yeah.
Oh, DigiWorlds now. I thought it was
That's
Virtual
what the
Bell.
URL says in the hypergrid address. I know you
Didn't we
can't
used
see
to
it,
have
but
one at Virtual Belfast or somewhere?
well,
Wasn't
this is
that a?
Pirates Atoll. And at Virtual
Oh,
Belfast, I tried to, during your panel, Mal, I
oh,
had scheduled to go to the Maritime Club at
that's it.
Virtual
Yeah.
Belfast. But I went over there to check with them to see if they were available, and they were on break. They had a little note up saying they had to have a personal real life break and that they'd be back. So when they come back, we'll be excited to bridge with them. And in the past, you're right, they had
Right.
live stream for singing, and wonderful opportunities. But this year they're offline, so
But it doesn't
Hmm.
matter because you got my panel.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And we have so much content that, of course, we had to work hard to get those breaks in there.
Yeah, it's always the case, isn't it?
Hmm.
Oh, at least okay, I bet you don't. I don't. I bet you don't look back on the days of the five different strands or whatever.
Now, what you're not the tracks, yeah.
The
What you're
tracks,
not
that was
seeing on
it.
the
Yeah.
schedule is there are social events, and we've had two or three.
Yeah.
They may be after the conference. I have to go look at the listing, but I know there's one for a CVL tour where you can go see their libraries and see all their content and pick up some wonderful freebies. And then there's a couple of others. There might be one for an art gallery, and so I'll have to look at the list. And if anyone's interested in scheduling a social event or a tour of your facility, make sure you hit the website at conference.opensimulator.org and go under Get Involved is the link, and it's called Community Events Sign Up, and we'll get you on the schedule.
Okay, doke. And I've just. Oh, hang
There
on.
you
Let me
are.
just
Get
write it down.
involved.
I've. Yes, I've put the page up.
Yeah, I'm looking.
I don't need that. I'm just scrolling down so we get a bit.
Great.
We get a bit of the graphic and the address and everything, so it's there.
Wonderful.
So it's there as we keep going out, as it were.
And the
Uh,
hypergrid address. By the way,
yeah.
register for the conference. We need, even if you're coming in from the hypergrid, we'd like to know who's coming. And it also helps us for our outreach so that we tell folks the fact that this conference matters. The community is interested and engaged, and this is your conference.
And not to mention that you
Hmm.
can keep if people are registered, you can keep them informed over the year as to how things are going and the next one, etc., etc.
That's right, especially
Yes.
when new events are posted. We
Yeah.
can send out announcements. Absolutely. And we'll have an after party for Avicon after the conference, right before the holidays.
Ah, very
And
good,
that'll
very
come.
good.
We'll announce that later. First, we have to get through the conference.
Yeah, yeah, get the
Yes.
conference over with before you start thinking about
Celebrate, celebrate.
after parties. Yeah, make sure there's 2 weeks break between the conference and the after party.
Oh, you're so funny. I think they usually
Conference
do it before the
hangover.
holiday, but it might be after. I don't know.
Actually, I can't think of it. 2 weeks after the conference will be the holiday weekend. Really.
I know, I
Mhm.
know. Well, that's actually
Maybe a
1
week.
week later. Yeah.
Maybe a week. Yeah.
Yep.
James, I forget. I know I came to you.
No, you
Did
did.
you have any other pertinent points, James?
Nope, I'm good. Thanks.
Yep. So you'll be there.
Wonderful.
I'm helping Marcus with the cameras and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
oh yeah, that we should point out that if you, for some reason you can't get in World, I don't know, where you're not by a computer or you're on
Live stream.
an iPad or something like that, then it's all live streamed at YouTube. So, just because you can't get into the virtual environment doesn't mean you can't enjoy all the actual
Now,
sessions.
Right.
when they register for the conference, they get access to the live stream link, right? And then
Yeah,
also we tweet it the day of the event. So take a look at Twitter for
yeah.
OpenSim19, the hashtag, or
Is it
OpenSimCC.
is there a special YouTube channel? Is it normal? Is it the Avacon one or
It
the
Really
one
good
that's
question.
normally? James, do you
it
know
should
by
be
any
the
chance?
normal Avacon channel.
It's the Avacon channel,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, because it's not on it. It's not on my channel anymore. I know that. So
Yep.
yeah. Um, right, that's good. By the way, James, what's the ball?
Oh, it's a snowball.
Oh,
We were talking about scripts, and so I this was
Right.
you
from Kayaker
right.
provided us snowballs the other day.
You found you found a snowball.
Wonderful.
This is weird virtual tradition, isn't it? Back in the days of early Second Life, all the Lindens came on at Christmas, and the players were all invited to
Right,
throw
right.
snowballs at them. I gather nobody ever got damaged, but it just seems like a back to their gaming origins. Let's have
Yep.
a snowball fight.
Exactly.
very, very good. I don't see any much sign of snow. Actually, this time of year, you should have, at least one of the expo regions should have snow in it.
Oh, they will for the
And trees.
party, but we don't normally for the conference. And you know why? We
Or the
try to
state.
limit script activity
Oh
in
yeah,
case we get more than we always get at least 75, in attendance in it for any one session, but we have up to 400,
yeah.
who may register and show up. So we have to provide a uniform experience to everyone. So that's a good thing to end on is the fact that when you log into the conference, if you're hypergridding in, you'll go to a hypergrid landing zone, and then you'll come over to one of the OSCC keynote regions, and you'll
Yeah.
be auto assigned. So whatever one you click on, it's going to route you to the one that's works with your landing zone. And the reason for that is to distribute the workload for the server so that we don't crash. We don't have everyone landing on the same region at the same moment.
I do. That's another point, actually. I know there are restrictions. I
Mhm.
mean, it's four quadrants that make up the
Yes.
the arena. The quadrant number one, as it were, is sort of locked down to certain people. But I'm just trying to think, if
For
people,
speakers
if
and for volunteers. And the reason is they need access to the stage. So
of
you wouldn't
course,
want your speakers to not be able to log in, get to the stage, and be able
yeah.
to actually do, especially
No,
when we only have 10 minutes to
10
do the,
minutes. Yeah.
the
yeah, no,
switchover.
I was just thinking, isn't the I mean, for example, the in the staff area where the dev panel have their little Q&A, there are
Hmm.
actually sponsor people available. So if people want to
That's right.
get a VIP ticket, presumably they still can, and that will give them
They
access.
can.
Not that
That's
it
right.
matters, but it will give you access to zone one.
Just register for the conference. And you have to realize some of the different funding levels also give you a booth on the expo region. So we
Yeah.
still have a few left if someone's interested. So don't delay. You can res your content. You can bring it in also through. You can make arrangements with Franz Charming, who helps to coordinate that. But or through OSCC at excuse me OSCC organizers, one word,
Uh,
at avicon.org. Sorry.
maybe, yeah. Okay,
That's the,
maybe.
the email address. Hmm.
I imagine James might be putting that up on the
Oh,
overlay
I'm
at
Yeah,
the
it's
moment.
sorry. I
OSCC.
can't.
Here, I'll give it to you again. It's OSCC organizers one word, at avicon.org.
Excellent.
So, while we're rounding things off, you can make a note of that address so you can get in
That's right. And
touch.
you could register for the conference. Just select a category and then tell us in your registration, and that'll do too. And
Right.
remember, the registration's under the website there where it says register. And you register for a free ticket if you're not going to be a VIP or a supporter. And then everyone is welcome. So do not feel
Yeah.
bad. We want you to register so you're counted. Thanks.
Yeah, and a reminder that the website, if you want to get to the all these details and stuff you're seeing on screen, is conference.opensimulator.org/2019. And that gets you to the front page where you can click on all the bits to go to the
And if
other
you forget
meets.
the year, it automatically routes you there.
Fair enough. Fair
Yep.
enough. Yeah. I wish things automatically routed me to the right century too.
Me too.
Okay. And that's the end of this Inworld Review special for the, what was it, 8th of December, 1920, no, 1919, no, 2019.
No, 2019.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah.
time traveler.
I,
Now the
I, I,
Time
That's
Lord.
right.
no, I'm joking there, but I have tripped up on a few occasions. Sometimes
That's
I
good.
just forget the 21st
Well, wait
century
till we get to
time.
2020. We're going to be so confused, right?
That's
Hmm.
not too bad because I always think of 2020 vision. So I'm going to remember that one pretty quick.
Good.
2021, then I'll be getting confused because that will be 20 for 20th century. No, 20th for 20 years and 21 for 21st century. But the 21st year, never mind.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm so good at confusing
On that
myself
note,
when I
coffee.
confuse myself when I try. Okay, well, I think we've covered everything. It's been a delightful chat and quite a long show to boot. So we've actually had a mini conference to tell you what's happening. I don't think there's anything we've left unstated, but obviously you've got to be here to see and hear the real thing. Um, right, well, lovely. You came along there. Sad we didn't get Joyce here. I've got a feeling if Joyce had been here, we'd have a show that's twice as long.
Well, we can always do a recap after the conference, but it'll
Right,
have to
right.
be
Yeah,
after the holidays because we're going to have conference fatigue afterwards.
oh, yeah, absolutely. It's kind of we'll do a January show where it's just sort of OSCC. What the hell happened?
How did it go? The retrospective.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Don't get it's so easy to refer to post-event shows as post-mortems, and then when you think what post-mortem means, you think, oh god,
Hmm. It fits.
that is the wrong word, folks. That is the wrong word. Okay, well, thanks to Leah Lobo here. Thank you, Leah. Thanks also to James Atloud, who's been commenting a bit, but also filming it all
Yay.
for
Yep.
us.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Um,
James.
Hmm.
and thanks to me for deigning
Yay.
to look so awful in this contraption. This
Oh, you
haircut
look
belongs.
great. You look great.
This haircut belongs at least 4 decades ago.
And the
It's
color is
80s.
spectacular.
Yeah, the color. Well, I fiddled with that,
Yeah.
and I'm not very good at fiddling with wig colors. Anyway, yes. Here, live on the wig and find me a baby Yoda. Right. Okay. Well, hopefully, apart from we will, of course, be here at the conference. Whether we actually use this little makeshift stage to do any broadcasting to you while the conference is on, I very much doubt because the camera teams will be tied up with everything else. Well, you never know. Could do it lunchtime. Probably not. Um, but yeah, look out for us every week too at 11 a.m. Um, Pacific time when we have Meta World's news, and occasionally at noon when we have the World review like this one. So we're off. We're off. Going to get a nice lot of sort of sleep in, so we're
Hmm.
nice and fresh and ready when the conference starts. It's so very fun. The early morning start is is actually late afternoon for me, so it feels funny talking about these things as early morning. But never mind, never mind. Um, I think that's it. It's not like same time, same place next week because we won't be. So thanks for watching, everybody, and hope you join us and enjoy the conference.
Thank you.
Whatever and whenever.
And oh yes, yes. Guys, so long since we've done the show. What was yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good tomorrow, depending on whenever and where, no, wherever and whenever you are. Gosh, I've forgotten that one.
Excellent.
So long since I've done it. It used to go on autopilot. Okay, see you later, folks.
Bye.
Bye.